Dogville?
Yep, Dogville. Little background.
Okay.
So Dogville,
I
directed
used to
by
be happy, Heath. I
yeah,
used to have joy in my life, Heath.
yeah. I it's a all right. It'll make sense in a second why it's funny actually that this has happened. So Lars van Trier is a Danish filmmaker. Um,
Okay.
he he started a movement with another filmmaker called Dogma 95. And it was supposed to be like no artificial music, no displacement in time or place. So like everything that you did was here now. All music is diegetic. There's no murder or weapons or anything. It's supposed to be kind of like this is how life really is. If you've heard of mumblecore comes
Yeah.
right from Dogma 95. So Joe Swanberg, um, the Duplass brothers.
Okay.
Anyway, what's interesting is the movement lasted 10 years, went from 95 to 2005, and this comes at the tail end of it, and it pretty much violates every rule that Dogma 95 had because it's a period piece.
Yeah.
It uses unnatural camera movements. There is music. Uh, but all that to be said, it's actually the first in what's going to be a trilogy. Manderley was the second, which I didn't know. Bryce Dallas Howard took over as Nicole Kidman's character, and then the third one hasn't been filmed yet. Uh, it was in the running for the Palme d'Or in 2003, but you know who won it
Ooh.
in 2003? Gus Van Sant
No.
for Elephant.
Oh, that is disappointing.
Yeah, Elephant won the Palme
Oh.
d'Or in 2003. It beat Dog. Okay, so what I remembered about this film was that it was like a stage play. Um, but as I messaged you, I thought I remember it being
High quality?
tighter, cleaner. Yeah. Um, so much to the point to, and when I'm watching it now, like when I just finished it, I
Yeah.
was like, this has to be like a bootleg version or something. But yeah,
Like
I didn't
somebody
remember
filming
it
in the
being like that.
theater.
Yeah, exactly. It was like precisely. But what was strange about it is that it's not. I mean, I guess it's single camera, but they still have like cuts with like dialogue to
Yeah.
where. So I wonder how many times they had to run this whole damn thing. This 3 hour long play that didn't
Three
need to be 3 hours.
3 hours.
Um,
Desperate
there's
for an editor.
I have notes. It's not a whole lot. Because a lot of it can just be there's a lot of fluff, if you will. Um, why is Paul Bettany's character named Thomas Edison?
I
He's
know.
not the Thomas Edison,
I know why, but it's no. He's not the Thomas Edison. No, but
but this, yeah. So on the surface, because I'm sure you have scratched to the mantle, whereas I'm just like, no, it's a sad movie. Um, you
go ahead and
have
tell me the plot of this movie. Heath.
yeah, the
Tell me the
so
plot.
you've got Paul Bettany, Philip Baker Hall,
Philip
Stella
Baker Hall,
Skarsgård. You've got a great cast, and they live
Jeremy
in
Davies.
yeah Jeremy Davies or
No
Balder
one,
from God of War.
nobody knows him. Nobody knows Jeremy Davies.
If you've watched Lost, you know about Ferris.
Okay, yeah, I guess Lost, but like the movie Ravenous. I mean, I guess he was in Saving Private Ryan, then Ravenous, and that's when I was like, that guy. And
He's the reporter in Saving Private Ryan or
yeah,
whatever, the typist.
and in Ravenous, which is an amazing horror movie set in the 1700s, late 1700s,
Oh,
but it is Dark stars Guy Pearce,
Interesting.
Robert Carlyle, Jeffrey Jones. Those are the stars of the movie. I'm gonna have to cut out this little ad for a better movie than the one we watched, but I'm getting excited talking about a different movie, anything but Dogtown.
So Dogville is nestled in the peaks of Colorado. None of this really matters. It's a town of 15 people. And it's on a soundstage. So you've got people's homes blocked out, and it says like Thomas Edison House or
drawn in chalk.
Yeah, in chalk. And
on the ground
outline of a dog, and it's like, this is where the dog sits.
There's no walls. There's very few props.
Right.
They draw the bushes.
Yeah. So they've got some beds. They have a bell, the top of a bell tower that's kind of just suspended.
Yeah.
A few like chairs, things like that. Their spaces look lived in, essentially.
Sure.
So one day in this little 15-person town, Nicole Kidman shows up, Grace. And they're closed off to people for whatever reason. They make it seem like now that she's here, she can never leave. And she kind of tries to earn her place in the community by doing odd jobs for people, things that don't really need to be done. But
that's the thing. No one needs anything to be done.
Yeah.
But there are things that don't need doing that could be done.
Correct. So like regrouting your kitchen, like doesn't need to be done, but sure, do it.
Yeah.
So she does that for about 2 weeks, and they hold a town meeting, and Grace is ready to skedaddle. She thinks that she's not earned her place, but sure enough, she gets the 15 votes and is allowed to stay.
Right.
But her relationship with the town begins to deteriorate the further in we go, to the point that she is, I think she's raped by every male in the community except maybe
Paul Bettany's character is the only one, at least according to him.
Okay.
Tom Edison.
I didn't know.
He says, everyone else has. Why won't you just let me have sex with you?
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, everyone else has by force. This might not be a thing I enjoy with people I care about.
Yeah. So yeah, she ends up being kind of used up.
Don't mind if I drink if we're going to be talking about this movie. Good God. I was like, no, I'll be fine with this movie. This movie I want to do sober. Should not have done sober. Good.
Yeah, it's there's a few interesting things, like their main street is called Elm Street, although there's no elms in the area.
There is a dog tree. Dogwood.
Dogwood, yeah. So John Hurt does this actually a pretty great narration of what's going on. He gives you the exposition that you need. The music, to me, I think it's Vivaldi, but it sounds very familiar to Fargo. So I kept thinking of the movie Fargo, and as you were talking about Ravenous, I was like, God, I wish I was watching Fargo.
Oh, I will say Ravenous has the absolute worst soundtrack of any film ever. Just a heads up.
Okay.
Like,
whereas Fargo has pretty great music.
Doesn't fit in, definitely distracts you from the movie you're watching.
Huh.
But other than that, great film. So,
yeah. So the people turn spiteful.
Future generations, if you're wondering, we stand in the great narrator wars. We support John Hurt.
And Morgan Freeman.
John Hurt. I like Morgan Freeman, but I think Morgan Freeman sounds like Morgan Freeman.
Well, sure.
I hear it and I go, oh, Morgan Freeman's doing this movie.
You know who should do more narration? Andre Braugher.
I don't know him. I don't think I do. I might.
You don't watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Of course. Oh, yeah. Is he the chief in that show? Yeah, captain. Yeah. Yeah, I like his voice. Anyway, John Hurt, forever.
Right.
I was sad when he died.
I think his death was like one of those, oh, okay. Like, oh, he's dead? Okay. Like when Abe Vigoda finally died, I was like, oh, okay.
What made me really sad about it was like everyone's like, oh, the guy from Harry Potter. And I'm like,
oh, the guy from 1984.
right.
Oh, the guy from a lot of things. V for Vendetta.
It would be like if Malcolm McDowell died and they're like, the guy from Star Trek Generations went. And you'd be like,
the guy from Kids of the Round Table. If anybody knows that movie, kudos to you.
I know of the movie. I don't think I've ever seen it.
It's like a mid-90s
yeah.
kid finds Excalibur and uses it to, anyway.
Surf ninjas, but medieval England.
There you go. We're getting way off track.
All right. Grace. So many other movies are better than Dogville.
Grace is the daughter of a mobster, James Caan.
We don't know that till the end, but
yeah, till the end. But so the end is probably the best part of the whole movie because everyone gets fucking murdered.
All the people who have treated her poorly through the whole movie, like I had forgotten
to give them grace. She tries to give them grace. She tries and tries and tries and tries and tries. And then finally, James Caan's voice of reason, if you will, pries into her brain. And she's like, you know what? These people are awful. What does they say? Dogs obey their own nature. And so she tells them, like, wipe them out. And she says, there's a family that has children. Make sure you start with the children first and have the mother watch and say that you will stop killing them if she doesn't cry, which harkens back to when, because Grace bought these porcelain dolls, the only thing that she has ever purchased for herself from her work.
Yeah.
And she loved these dolls. They were hers. And Patricia Clarkson's character, Vera, comes in and smashes them because they think that Grace is like ruining their community or whatever it is.
Because Grace was raped by Chuck, her husband.
Yeah, so it's not like she asked for it. Anyway, so she breaks one of the figurines and says, "I'll stop if you don't cry."
It goes back to Stoicism. Stoicism as a philosophy is a detachment from emotions or the material possessions. So if you don't cry when I break your things, that means you understand Stoicism. Stupid.
Yes.
Very big misunderstanding of Stoicism. But
I think that's on purpose though. Like, to show I guess just how uneducated they are. But yeah, so then that line, I guess, that at the end, that's like a chill kind of thing, but pretty much the only emotion I had during the movie other than like, I thought it was funny that there's Vera and Chuck, but there's no Dave. So those are the three people named in When I'm 64.
Why do you think they're named Vera and Chuck?
I mean, Vera Lynn keeps coming to mind, but I don't know.
We'll get there. I'll go through it.
I know that their kids are all named after Greek deities.
Sure. There's 7 kids. Hera has 7 kids. You know what? That's fine.
All right. So I think that's enough of, just kind of surface in my notes and stuff. So
No, I want to hear. I want to hear your thoughts on what this movie is about.
I mean, it feels, I guess, not anti-American, but I mean, maybe. I can't get away from the fact, like, that Paul Bettany is named Thomas Edison. I mean, there's got to be a reason for that.
I think so.
Essentially, the father of modern invention.
What is Paul Bettany in the movie?
I think he's a villain. I mean, he is the.
What's his occupation?
He's a writer, right? He says he writes.
He says he's writing, but is he a writer? He says he's a philosopher. He doesn't even say writer. He says he is a philosopher, or John Hurt calls him a philosopher. Okay. And he's not good. He's not writing positive things. And he's not writing anything for most of the story. Yeah. It's only later when he's looking around at other people going, these guys kind of suck, that really any idea of philosophy is coming out of him.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I want to say something intelligent about it, but I don't. I have nothing.
I'm not gonna lie. This movie sucks.
Yeah.
I can see why you wanted to watch it after Antebellum. The idea of the climax being cathartic and seeing people we don't like get killed. Awesome. Yeah. So there is a lot of that because the movie focuses on the elephant in the room. The whole movie, if no one tells you about it, is that there is no set. There is no scenery, no background. There is not the mountain they keep talking about, how beautiful it is. You can't see it. The town and how quaint it is. You can't see it. The view outside of the blind man's apartment, right. He can't see it. And there is a lot of the things that we can't see the beauty of because we aren't looking at them. When we start with Grace, she is called Alabaster Hands, where they are saying she is untouched. And initially people are like, oh no, we don't need help because you should be helping someone much more in need than me. And eventually they're like, oh, you are helping us. Thank you for that. But almost immediately, like 2 weeks later, they're like, where are you? You were the one who's supposed to help us. That's your job. And they have gone from seeing the beautiful mountain, seeing the beautiful village, to it's in the background. They don't even notice it anymore. One man in that village of 15 may be blind, but all 15 of them can't see. And that is hugely significant. Yeah. If only she would open the blinds. Do you remember how the old man didn't open the blinds because he couldn't see? Why bother?
Yeah.
And then she opens the blinds and is like, look. And he's like, I can't. That's kind of how we view a lot of our American history. Not just American, I would say European altogether. Because I definitely think Chuck and Vera represent a kind of Eurocentric view of things. She talks about Stoicism and the philosophy of Europeans. We justify our history all the time. We justify slavery. We justify the rapes. And the fact that these people made her into a slave. And slavery is definitely mentioned. I believe each section of the town represents things. We have capitalism in a store. We have the family unit in this Greek family. Hera is the name of Zeus's wife, and Zeus rapes a lot of people, but Hera never blames Zeus. Hera blames the women he sleeps with, transforms them into animals, and like really tortures them, and they did nothing wrong. Like reading Greek history, the women Zeus goes after, they do nothing wrong, but they are tortured, they are killed, they are raped because Greek, but we justify that. We say they are a product of their time. People who owned slaves were a product of their time. You and I said that last week.
Right.
And I think the whole point of Antebellum was that kidnapping, you remember how we said it's so much worse because it's modern day?
Yeah.
It's not. That's exactly what those people did back then. They took people who could have been doctors, who could have been things. They kidnapped them. They put them into slavery. When we see it nowadays, we look and go, oh, that's horrible. How could they do that in modern days? Those were modern days.
Yeah.
It's no worse today to do it than it was then. It was awful then.
Yeah, people try and justify it too by saying like their own people sold them into slavery. And like, that doesn't make it any better.
Right. It's not better. You can't own a person and be like, it's that person's fault that I own a human being.
You can't push it off and say, well, yeah, it's terrible, but like, no, it's terrible, ! There's no comma, there's no but. It's terrible.
If their own people sold them into slavery and you paid money for a human being, you are an awful person.
Yeah. Like, still terrible.
And I think that really, I've been thinking about that all week, by the way. The Antebellum, like, oh shit, it wasn't worse than it was then. That's really what it was like then.
Yeah.
These people who were doctors and, things that we have robbed them from their family to be raped and it's the same.
And that's through history. I mean, the Jews were enslaved, and these people that are supposed to be God's chosen people, like consistently shit on for, the however long. And again, those were those modern times. They could have been
and
whatever.
But so to return to Dogville a bit, I think these aspects represent like the family unit, slavery in the form of the Black woman and her
special needs daughter,
because she referred to Tom as master and Tom referred to her as master. With the blind man, we have art, just beauty in general. The store represents capitalism. I think the church represents a church. And
they made, Martha, who is the organ player. I think they made her very simple. Like, oh, I can't play the organ unless I get, okay from this committee. And I'm like, who's checking that? And when the women are starting to become really awful towards Grace, she still kind of looks like, I don't know what's going on. So I don't know if that's like a statement about the church in general.
I mean, think about church right now saying we won't do anything good unless we get told by God that that's what we should be doing. But when it comes to standing up for people who attend the church, they're there for it whether God tells them to or not, I mean, how many times have we heard about someone saying, God told me to do this awful thing, and someone going, they're just standing up for their religion. I think of Kim Davis, who, does something bad, and people are like, she's standing up for her religion. And it's like, the government doesn't get a religion. So if she's a government, she doesn't get a religion. When she's acting as a citizen, she totally has a religion.
Yeah, if
But
you're going to work in a government entity and your job is to sign marriage licenses or whatever, that's
there's
your job.
right. She's a clerk, and while the citizen Kim Davis has the right to religion, the clerk never does.
Right.
Kim Davis has a right not to be a clerk.
Correct.
Anyway, but that's what I feel is coming in from her is this kind of justification. I mean, you even have like the engineer of the town is an idiot, Jeremy Davies, who a brilliant man who only plays fools. I don't think he's ever played a socially competent person.
Yeah, I was gonna say Faraday, but Faraday.
Even him, you know.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly.
But
it was funny when he creates his way to keep grace, and it's just a chain on a big rusted wheel, and everyone's like,
he put her on a leash.
wow.
He put her on a leash.
And it's like, and we've designed it to where it can, like, you can pull it along an even surface. And the town is even, but once you leave, then it's all uneven. I'm like, oh my God.
I think.
And you can still lie in your bed. It's okay.
Yeah.
Talking about justification. Jeez.
Yep. And I mean, think about the dog itself, Moses, the dog.
Right.
You know, obviously the name Moses represents someone being delivered out of slavery, whereas the church justifies slavery. The you know, the big families, the farmers who, you know, the transportation industry can't make it without slavery. The cotton industry couldn't survive without slavery. Consumerism, all of that requires slavery. And probably one of the biggest components of that are writers. Writers who romanticize a time when slavery existed. And this is where Tom comes in. I think Tom represents a Mark Twain.
Okay.
Someone who doesn't necessarily approve of slavery, but definitely humanizes the inhuman people who did it. My opinion.
Okay.
Sorry, I literally only I finished this movie like 10 minutes before we started this Zoom call. So like other than that, I haven't seen it in like minimum 15 years.
And it's funny. So you had seen it before.
Yeah. I remembered, the only thing I remembered was Paul Bettany's in it. Nicole Kidman gets raped and there are no sets.
Okay. So you remembered more than I did.
That's all I remembered.
I mean, I remembered Paul Bettany. I remembered the cast, most of the cast, and there was no sets. And that there was mobsters involved, but the overall story I did not remember. And then as I'm watching it, I was like, holy moly.
Think about the mobsters. Do you know how many people justify bad actions because the people who are against it are criminals? Look on the news. How many people go, why are the BLM protesters honored when they are obviously criminals? Well, fuck. Freeing slaves was a crime.
Yeah.
So maybe they are mobsters, but they are ending slavery in Dogville.
Yeah. I mean, they level that town. There's nothing worth saving there.
And burnt it to the ground. Sherman burnt the shit out of the South.
Yeah. Wrapped railroad ties around trees. Or not ties, the tracks around trees.
Yeah. I mean, the railroads are inextricably linked to slavery.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Kennesaw, Georgia. If you want to know how slaves and the South happened, it's Kennesaw, Georgia. I mean, that's where slavery and trains came together. Like the reason Sorry, I think we're supposed to be talking about Dogville.
But I mean, this is a part of it.
Yeah, slavery has always had this hold on people and the justifications for it, where we and Grace say this is what they did because it's their nature. It's the situation they grew up in.
Yeah.
And it's justified. And then you have James Caan coming in going, hell no, it's not justified. It's not a product of the time. Were you in that situation? Would you have done different? And Grace is like, I really would have. I really, really would have. And this town.
That's what causes her to take a step back and say, I am better than these people.
Yeah. It's James Caan says it's condescending to say, oh, they just don't know any better. No, they need to be held accountable. They don't want to be condescended to.
What is he? He says, you're arrogant.
Yeah.
Or he's like, you're the most arrogant person I've ever known, or something.
Yeah.
Talking about, trying to justify their actions and trying to distance herself from him. But yeah, then it ends up becoming, take care of these people.
Yeah. So all of that subtext said, hire a cinematographer, get a goddamn sound designer, an editor, for the love of God, before and after production, an editor. Oh.
Yeah, I fell asleep at one point and woke up and I was like,
did I miss anything?
Happened. Yeah, it was, as much as I love baseball, it was like watching a baseball game.
Yeah.
Fall asleep in the third inning, wake up in the seventh, and like, oh, it's still 1-0.
And any charm that you find in those times, think about like the little porcelain figures that she has, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the little joys she finds in that time. The nobility of her servitude. Look at what I've built. And even they are like, no, you can't have that.
Yeah.
There is no good in this. And that's where I think Tom becomes the hardest one to kill, is because he's the writer. We like Mark Twain. We like Tom Sawyer. But we need to stop justifying it even through that. We need to not look at this as charming. And that has to burn too.
I mean, I think, have officially changed Jim's name in Huck Finn to where it's not
Jim?
No, it's not Inward Jim anymore.
Why? That's what it was.
I mean, so you don't have a bunch of kids saying the N-word repeatedly. That's why.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, you're talking about it was justified at the time, right? That's just what they call them.
It's not that it's justified. It's that people should know how bad that word is and how common that word is and the type of person who thought that normal. And the type of person who thinks that was normal.
So do you leave it in a children's book, or I guess not a children's book?
I don't think it was ever a children's book.
No, I don't mean children's. I mean, you read it as a teenager. It's a school age book.
I'm going to give a very controversial opinion right now. You ready?
No, what happened?
People should keep reading after high school.
All right, never mind. My point is moot. It's like a cow's opinion. It's moo. It's moo. It doesn't matter.
No, I think Mark Twain should be read probably in college. I don't think kids are being taught nuance such as just because this main character has this quality doesn't make it a good quality. I've been talking a lot about Sherlock Holmes lately.
Robert Downey Jr.?
Henry Cavill, actually.
Henry Cavill? Okay.
So I was talking with a friend about the new Enola Holmes.
I want to watch it.
I'm not going to give it to you. So
on Netflix.
I know. I'm not going to give it to you as like our movie for next week.
Oh, okay.
But someone was saying that if you think Enola is somewhat of a Mary Sue because she has all these qualities, then think about Sherlock Holmes, who has all these qualities. I was like, Sherlock Holmes has all those qualities, but it never comes without a drug addiction and being hated by literally everyone in the story.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to want to be like Sherlock Holmes. You're not supposed to want to be Rick Sanchez. You're not supposed to want to be Cartman. You're not supposed to want to be the kid from Kick-Ass. You're not supposed to... Yeah, Ned Stark. You're not supposed to want to be those characters just because they're the protagonists. And the protagonist doesn't make them the good guy.
Yeah.
You know, and so like... Yeah.
Yeah, I read that they, I guess, not humanized, but made Sherlock a little more emotional in Enola Holmes. But
they made him likable.
The estate said that was proper though, like it was later in his life, and
it's fine. To be honest, most of Sherlock Holmes is fan fiction, and I like it's early fan fiction. But it was like the original stories of Sherlock Holmes. There's not a lot of them. Most of what you think of in the Sherlock Holmes collection is people who was like, I liked the Sherlock Holmes character. I'm going to keep writing Sherlock Holmes stories. But in the same sense with Mark Twain, just because you like a character doesn't make them a good person, doesn't make them someone you should emulate. And while you and I can get that, you know, most adults do. This is the reason why I will not let my kids watch Rick and Morty. They are not going to understand that Rick Sanchez is not the good guy in Rick and Morty. He's not a good guy in Rick and Morty. He's like, and it's the same with South Park, you know, just because they're the main character doesn't make them the good guy. They are often wrong and used to show that it's wrong sometimes, you know. Archer, BoJack Horseman, these are not good people. They are protagonists. They're the main character. That's it. And that's the way I feel about Mark Twain in general, is that until you understand that just because they are not the villain of the story doesn't mean they are a good character or a good person.
Right.
And same with Dogville. I think Paul Bettany doesn't necessarily play a bad person. He is a person who doesn't rape someone to get what he wants. That's not necessarily good or the good person.
Actively blocks Grace from leaving.
Yes, exactly.
He sets her up to escape and then sees to it that she does not escape. And then when she questions him about it, he's like, yeah, I did that.
That's part of the plan. But he's part of the problem. Like, he is part of the problem. And he sells her out for what he hopes will be personal gain.
That's why I said he's the villain.
I would say he
brought her, or not brought her there, but he kept her there.
I don't know if he's the villain, but he's a villain. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dogville. That's a record for us. Like, what?
Well, it's because we both hated it.
I mean, everything I like about cinema and film. This movie is like, what if we threw that in the garbage? That's it. Not replace it with things, just garbage.
You should look into some. I mean, I think I've watched one or two Dogma 95 films, and they're all kind of like that.
I
Well,
don't
no,
know
no,
what
no, 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 never mind. They're all just they're all just very boring because not a whole lot happens in them by design. It's like watching Jeff Who Lives at Home or Cyrus. Like both of those are mumblecore, and they're kind of just boring.
I hate mumblecore. I hate
Yeah,
improv. I hate anything where like the things that happen are not a product of other things that happen. They don't work together. They're not being built together. They're this kind of like throw shit at a wall, Jackson Pollock style. And I'm not a fan of Jackson Pollock paintings.
I imagine that Chloe Sevigny is in Dogville because she's kind of like the mumblecore, like queen, if you will, which I'm sure is a title she would reject, but she's definitely been in a number of. I don't know if she's been in Swanberg films, but she's definitely been in a number of mumblecore films.
Another interesting thing I found in Dogville, not only are like how we talked about how the reason there is no scenery is because they take for granted the
Right.
setting around them. The bell, the church bell, starts aligning to her schedule. And it's like this threat over her shoulder all the time to keep doing more and to keep doing more because the threat of the bell is there. And when they put a collar on her, they add a bell to literally hang over her shoulder and remind her of the work she is required to do in order to survive.
Right.
I thought that was kind of neat, was the using the bell as a symbol of her rigid schedule and, you know.
Yeah.
But all of that should have been in a better movie, and please God, a shorter movie. This movie did not earn 2 hours of my life.
No. And what's funny, I think there's 9 chapters plus a prologue. I think I got to like chapter 7, and I'm like, oh, it's almost done. And I'm like, what? There's an hour and a half left?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Oh. So there was a part when she's like getting on the truck, and I was like, okay, all right, this is the home stretch. I remember this.
Right.
And then I look and I'm like, wait, there's still an hour left of this film. I don't know if I can make it. Can I skip a bit? And I was like, no, I'm not going to skip a bit. I'm not going to skip a bit.
Oh, you're better than me. I did. I started just.
Oh, it was.
Same conversation.
It was hard. But now, there are some great elements in this movie. I just want them in a better movie. I
think the whole
camera,
not seeing the scenery. I mean, that's a great not indication, but good subtext.
Gimmick is the word.
Oh, okay.
And there's a lot
gimmick as something as like I wouldn't call it a gimmick.
There's a lot of computer graphics and effects in this movie. A surprising amount.
When you said that it was a slapdash production, which means like hurried or not a lot of thought put into it, he did a pilot for this. Like he did like a proof of concept, and then somehow it got pat. And the proof of concept was an hour long, from what I read. And how it blew up to 3 times that, I don't know.
I may like the pilot more if it's tight, if it's concise. There were several edits in the movie that I was straight up going, hang on, I need to go back and witness how sloppy this edit is. Like, it's almost a jump cut where like John Hurt's narrating and they're having a conversation and whatnot, and then it jumps to a very similar shot just to really stretch out the length of time that you're seeing characters interact with each other while John Hurt narrates, because they didn't plan for them to have enough business to do during the narration. They just cut 2 pieces together to make long sections where they talk. And they did such a bad job, like such a bad job, that it was a jump cut where like you see a person like profile talking and they're having a conversation, and then it jumps and they're like further into the conversation. And so they're like in a different place and it's noticeable. And like the camera's not in the same place, but it's almost the same shot. And I'm like, why would you do that? I would like, even if you were doing exactly what I said they were doing, which is just trying to compile pieces to like stick together to make a conversation, why not run it backwards? Put it so that, you know, it jumps from the driver to Nicole Kidman and then focuses back to the driver, not going from the driver to the driver again, then panning over to Nicole Kidman. Play it backwards. Like that all was going through my mind as I was watching this train wreck of an edit. And just so bad. And now here is what I have to say about editing in general. The worst thing I can say about editing is that I noticed it so much that what was going on the film didn't matter compared to the editing.
Right.
Like, this is a slave escaping in the back of an Apple truck, and all I can think about is how bad the edit was. One cut. And as much as I like the people are blind to what's in front of them.
Yeah.
Build a damn set. Put it on a damn mountain.
Do the damn work.
Photograph it in a way that matters. And it's just like all of those things combined together to make a movie that can be deep with symbolism, have a family of Greek heroes doing Greek tragedy things, and I still don't like the movie.
All right, what do you got for us for next week?
All right, so
unless you want to keep going on about Dogville and its numerous shortcomings.
I believe Dogville has taken up enough of my life.
Great.
To that end, it is October. I think we are in horror movie season.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And this is one I've wanted to talk about for a while because I think the people who talk about it have locked into one interpretation and are ignoring the film and basically saying it ignored the interpretation that they had set out for it, and they're wrong. So I'm excited to talk about this movie.
I have a feeling I know what it is.
Silent Hill.
Oh, never mind.
Silent Hill is a game I love. Silent Hill 2 is a game I love. And Silent Hill, the movie, the first one, is a movie I love. And I love them all three for the exact same reason. And I want to talk about that.
That the graphical processing was too slow on the PlayStation. That's why there's fog everywhere.
That's fine. Look, necessity is the mother of invention. I'm good with it.